Marsha Blackburn. Senator, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. This is a stalemate, okay? It's not an unconditional surrender situation. An unconditional surrender, you can make all your own terms like we did with Japan after the war, et cetera. But this is a stalemate, and they're trying to make a peace deal for a stalemate where both sides can't demand any unconditional surrender. It seems that Zelensky doesn't understand that, does it?
Well, what we do know is this. President Donald Trump made a commitment to end endless wars, and the American people have grown weary of funding a war where they don't seem to have a strategy and is going on and on. There is a deal that has been offered to Zelensky, and I think it would be a very positive move for Zelensky to work with the president. I think it would be a positive move for Putin to come to the table, and I think the president was acted appropriately in speaking against Putin with his attack on Kyiv this week.
Sure, but I mean, just focusing on Zelensky for a moment, at times it appears he doesn't understand that he could not survive were it not for U.S. support. And continuing what Donald Trump might see as obstinance and not even coming to some very basic understandings about a peace deal might make Donald Trump pull out.
And it would be a good thing for Zelensky to come to the table and to work with President Donald Trump so that we can bring an end to this.
So who's going to get him to the table?
I think that President Trump will be able to do this. You know, one of the things, David, that was always perplexing to me as we started to hear about what was shaping up in Ukraine, and as we had military leadership that was saying, well, this will be over in about 3 days, I asked if someone could define a win and someone could define a strategy. We're this far into this, and no one seems to be able to have defined that strategy or a win. So it is past time for people to sit at the negotiating table and work this out. I think President Trump has had that leadership role in trying to make this happen. I would hope that some of our allies in the region could also push to get people to the negotiating table.
Now, let me switch to China, which we were just talking about with our previous panel.
Sure.
It sure looks like the EU and Japan and a number of other countries being forced to take sides on this, that, you know, whether they're going to stick with the U.S. and continue that trade line to be open or jettison the U.S. for the sake of working with China. They're not willing to jettison the U.S. at all. The EU suggested that if China starts to dump all their made goods that were coming to the U.S., if they start to dump it into Europe, they're going to apply the same kind of tariffs against China that we have. So what happens? What does China do now? When are they going to finally admit that they've painted themselves into a corner?
I think China is already admitting that because they've come to the negotiating table and they have to have the U.S. market. And our allies all want our market. And David, we have had the representatives, the ambassadors from Canada, from the EU, from so many countries in Washington, D.C. They are ready to talk. They want to make a deal. I give our Treasury Secretary Bessent a lot of credit for how he and the president have gotten people to the table. You've got over 80 countries now, and China being one of them, that are in talks, that are ready to make a deal, and getting to a reciprocal tariff or a zero tariff so that we get the cost of living down for the American people, so that we get inflation down. This has been a goal of President Trump. He's been committed to it, and I think it is noteworthy that people are showing up to negotiate their deals.
Yeah. And by the way, there's an event this weekend, the Pope's funeral tomorrow morning. And while the president is there, because President Trump is going, apparently there are going to be a number of pull-asides where various foreign leaders are going to be pulled aside and do the tariff talk. I mean, some people might think it's a little unseemly given the occasion, but it is going to happen. There's no doubt about it, right?
You're right about that. And people do want that FaceTime with the president.
Yeah.
And he made a promise that he was going to do this. He is keeping that promise, just like he has kept his promises on immigration, the economy. And it is important to note that people want access to our market. They want to be our partner. You look at the difference that has been made in states like Tennessee since President Trump was elected. And we have in Tennessee alone, our economic development agency has landed more than 30 projects. They have seen 3,700 new jobs coming online. Much of that is direct foreign investment. And David, that shows you people know that we are a healthy economy. They believe in what this economy will be under a President Donald Trump. So as soon as he won election, they started showing up. And we've had over $1 billion of capital investment since the president was elected.
Senator, we got to leave it at that, but we thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate it, Senator Marsha Blackburn.